There is one more statistical function that's commonly used out there in industry, and this statistical function is the frequency function. Now in your Excel 2 file, I've moved to the sheet called frequency, and this is what you'll see. This is in fact 2 exercises, so for now you can ignore the blue and the grey area. That's a second exercise, and let's focus over here on the maroon and the green area. The frequency function is used by people who work with large amounts of data. And the first example I've gone with here is an example of demographics. For example, I have a whole lot of ages here in A, and usually this list would be huge, but I just want to keep it at a manageable size so we can check that things are working. So we have a list of data, and a list of ages I should say, in column A, and then we have a list of intervals or bins in the green cells. In fact, let's change the word intervals to bins. What I'm wanting to do in F4 is apply a frequency function that looks at these ages and slots them into these bins, because I want to know how many people fell between the ages of 0 to 20, between 21 and 30, 31 and 40, and 41 and 50. Let's start with the cell F4 and type equals FR. When I type equals FR, the explanation I'm given is it calculates how often values occur within a range of values and returns a vertical array of numbers having one more element than bins array. That's not extremely helpful, but what I am wanting to point out is the use of the word array and bins array particularly. Let's double click frequency. This particular function requires 2 pieces of information. It wants to know where's your data, and it wants to know where are your bins. Starting with the data is in the cells, I think you'd agree, A2 to A17. So that's what I want to enter, and then press comma. With the use of bold, it now says where are your bins. Well, the bins that I want to put the data into are actually E4 to E7. We don't need to include what's in columns C and D. That's purely for the reader. As far as the function goes, it simply needs to know the data is in A2 to A7 and the bins are in E4 to E7. Now the thing I want you to observe as well is the use of the word array for data and array for bins. So just make a mental note of that, and for now, press enter. There are 6 ages that fall between 0 to 20. And that's correct. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So given that that answer is correct, I now want to fill this formula down. And so placing my mouse in the bottom right corner of F4, I'll drag the thin black cross. I don't get an error, but I do get some very odd answers. And I'm sort of getting a little bit of a smart tag telling me the formula refers to a range that has additional numbers adjacent to it. That's actually a red herring. What I'm more worried about is when I highlight these 4 cells and I look down here at my status bar, the sum of the 4 cells is 40. Well, I only have over here in the maroon area 16 ages, so these results are actually incorrect. Now the reason the results are incorrect is if we show formulas is because of the relative references in the formula. So for example, the first formula says the data is in A2 to A17, which is correct, and the bins are in E4 to E7, which is correct. But when we look at the next formula, the data range is slipped by 1 and the bins have slipped by 1. And they've slipped by 2 in this one and by 3 in this one. So the relative cell references could be causing a problem. So what some people will do is they'll apply dollars to A2, dollars to A17, dollars to A4 and E4 and E7. Let me illustrate. So I'm going to undo my show formulas. I'm going to undo the filling down of the formula. And I'm going to edit the original formula. I'm going to highlight pretty much everything and press F4 and apply dollars because the data is in A2 to A17 and the bins are E4 to E7, and I'll press enter. And I don't want those ranges to relatively adjust. And I'll drag that down. The problem with doing that approach is now I have the same answer in each cell. So that's not the solution. The solution in this case is not to apply dollars to A2 to A17 and E4 to E7. We're going to undo applying the dollars and undo again and look at this original formula. I mentioned earlier the references to the word array. This is an array function and you cannot pull the thin black cross down to fill an array function. What you must do once you've got your first answer is highlight that formula or that cell that contains the formula and the cells you want to populate. So I want to populate the 3 cells below the 6. So highlight the 6 and the 3 cells under it. Press the function key F2, which throws you into edit mode, and then press the key combination Control Shift and then tap enter. So you hold the Control and Shift down and you tap enter. And that then fills the array down and gives you the correct answers. Now if you look up in your formula bar, the effect of Control Shift enter was to apply these parentheses around the outside of the function. Now you normally can't type those and get the function to work, so we have to use the Control Shift enter to do that. An array is not one formula that sits in one cell. It's not, and by pulling the thin black cross, it's not 4 separate formulas. An array is one formula that spans over 4 cells. To illustrate this further, these cells all contain the same formula and yet they're giving you different results. Also, if I try to delete one of these by pressing the delete key, it says I can't. It's part of an array. So this function actually flows over 4 cells, and if you want to get rid of it, you actually have to highlight the 4 cells and hit the delete key. And that's the difference. I'll go undo. By pulling the thin black cross, you actually create 4 formulas, 4 independent formulas. By highlighting the formula in the cells you want to fill in, pressing F2 and pressing Control Shift Enter, you actually make one formula span 4 cells, and that's what an array is. So looking at the results here, I can see as far as the demographics go that there are 6 people between the ages of 0 to 20, 5 people between 21 and 30, 2 people between 31 and 40, and 3 people between 41 and 50. So if this was a marketing exercise, you could say, okay, you're appealing to the younger age groups, and if you want to tap into a market you're not appealing to, you need to put incentives in place to appeal to the 31 to 40-year-old bracket, or the 41 to 50-year-old bracket, or it might be the health industry. You can also change these values. As we mentioned, these are actually not necessary. The formula will just work with these bin values. I could change this to 10, 25, 45, and 50. So one person is less than or equal to 10. 7 people are between 10 and 25. 6 people are between 25 and 45, and 2 people are between 45 and 50. And you can change them back again. Over here we have another exercise. We have all of these orders, say for the year 2016. And I want to know, by placing this data into these bins, how many orders were less than 1,000, how many between 1 and 2,000, between 2 and 4, 4 and 6, 6 and 8, and 8 and 10,000. So starting in M4, we'll type equals FR, and we'll trigger the frequency function by double-clicking frequency. The first thing it wants to know is where's your data. Your data is in H2 to H17 and comma. Then it wants to know where are your bins. Your bins are in L4 to L9 and enter. And you have one order between 0 and 1,000, and there it is there sitting in H2. Now to work out the other values, we highlight the cell that has the frequency function and the cells we want to populate. We press the function key F2 and we press the key combination Control-Shift-Enter. The bulk of the orders for this company come in between 2 and 4,000. If we wanted to make a key performance index, a KPI, to lift orders into the 4 to 6 range, we might put some incentives like free shipping for orders over 4,000 and lift our orders into this bracket. And that's the frequency function.